Good day, everybody, and welcome. Today we are going to be going through a pretty short introduction to the Dell EMC Ready Bundle for customers that are looking to implement and deploy Red Hat OpenStack platform. So, good day. My name is Steve Wanless. I'm the product manager for the Ready Bundle for Red Hat OpenStack platform, and I'm going to be your host going through the slides today. So, first off, let's just talk about the basics of the Ready Bundle. The release that we're currently on is known as Red Hat OpenStack Platform 10, and that corresponds with the Newton release. One of the things that I'm not going to be doing today is going into any depth on the philosophies and background of OpenStack, nor am I going to be talking much about the open source community that is building release after release that the Red Hat OpenStack platform software is based on. I'm going to be concentrating just on what it is that we're delivering. So major part of the Ready Bundle, the software content, as I said earlier, that's based on Red Hat OpenStack Platform 10. That's the Newton release. And as part of that release, we've also updated the Ceph storage version to version 2. What that means is that Ceph, which is the open source software defined storage component of the OpenStack environment, Ceph is used inside of this Ready Bundle for both block storage, image storage, and object storage. Pretty much every customer starts out using block storage and image storage. Whether or not they use object storage is pretty much dependent on the kind of workload that they're going to be running inside of their OpenStack infrastructure. As part of Release 10, we've also added support for the Dell FX2 modular platform, and so that means that in addition to the standard rack server style architecture cluster that you build out of R730s, 730XDs, R630s, you can now use FX2 chassis with FC630s, and the storage components there, once again it's Ceph as the software running on the combination of the FD332 and the FC630 as nodes there. You can also see that we support the Dell Open Networking switches, so that's the S3048 and the S4048 ON for Open Network switches. All the networking inside of the OpenStack cluster is 10 gig E. There's a 1 gig E Ethernet inside of there that we do all of the system management and image provisioning on. So this Ready Bundle is really built for customers that want to get OpenStack up and running as quickly as possible in their environments. I'm going to talk a little bit about who those customers are in the next slide, but it's really aimed at OpenStack users, and OpenStack users tend to be Linux users. So this is really a program that will appeal to any of your customers that are currently using Linux. That often means that they've come from a Unix background, so they've gone from a Unix to a Linux migration, and these are customers that are now looking to deploy cloud infrastructure. If they're Linux users, then OpenStack is going to be their preferred infrastructure to do that. We've built a lot of value into our program, and you'll see a lot of open source mnemonics or abbreviations here. So you can see that our current implementation is using something called OOO, or that I prefer to call OOO, which is the orchestration engine that deploys OpenStack across bare metal, and a whole bunch of other things. Customers that are looking to use containers or to build applications inside of Docker format containers are also going to be interested in OpenStack running as a workload another option of our program, which is the Red Hat OpenShift container platform. This enables customers that are building their own applications to, as I said earlier, build those applications into standard Docker format containers, which means that application will run inside of any platform that supports Docker. So it means once your application's built, you go through the build once, run anywhere kind of environment. And also for customers that are looking to use the Kubernetes management tool that was originated from Google as the management environment for all of their container-based applications. OpenShift Container Platform is the workload that runs inside of OpenStack that will enable them to do that. As part of what we deliver, there's a whole bunch of best practice guides that I'm going to talk a little bit more about in a minute, and some automation tools. What's new for release 10 now is the ability to buy the software through the Dell factory. So we now have OEM software SKUs for the OpenStack software. The Ceph SKUs still go through Dell EMC. But as part of offering the software through an OEM SKU, we now have the ability to sell Dell Pro support for software support contracts for OpenStack. So your Linux customers that are now looking for a single point of support for their entire cloud architecture can now do that through Dell. So if they're buying the Dell platforms to run the cloud infrastructure on, clearly they can get hardware support from Dell. There's support for the Linux operating system with Dell, and now there's support for OpenStack as a cloud environment from Dell as well. So it becomes a single point of support for customers that feel that's important. So now let's look at customers that are going to be interested in this Ready bundle. And remember, as part of the work we've been doing on positioning products with Dell EMC, we've been talking about customers who are somewhere on a spectrum that we've been calling build to buy. People that buy their infrastructure typically are looking for functionality contained inside of an appliance. That's right off at the end of the buy spectrum. Customers that are in the build world tend to procure components and then assemble their own solution themselves. And I have to tell you that OpenStack customers are very much in the build environment. And so a lot of the program output is designed specifically to assist customers who are in the build part of the spectrum. So what I mean by that is that I fully anticipate that customers of the OpenStack Ready bundle are going to procure just hardware from us. They may buy the software and the support from us as well, but they may not. They may go off and procure that software directly from Red Hat, because as I said, these are Linux users. They're probably already going to be using Red Hat. They are probably already going to have, if they're big enough, site-wide contracts between themselves and Red Hat. They may go and get the software through those site-wide contracts. Then what they're going to be doing is using all the output from this program in terms of deployment guides, configuration guides, and some other tools that I'm going to talk about in a minute to build that solution themselves. So their IT is going to assemble the hardware, prep the hardware, deploy the software, get the software up and running, and then put it into production. It's part of my goal with the Ready bundle to enable them to do that and to enable them to get that resulting cluster deployed and into production as rapidly as they can. And I'm doing that primarily to make sure that the reduced time it takes them to get that cluster into production means improved return on investment for all of the components in that bundle to the customer. So that's one option. One option is they buy it themselves. Another option that's supported inside of the Ready bundle is that a customer that wants to engage with both Dell EMC and Red Hat, they can do that and have the hardware delivered to site. And then Dell and Red Hat will come along and build the OpenStack deployment for them and within approximately 4 to 5 days leave that customer with a fully operational OpenStack cloud. So what I'm trying to do is appeal to the sector of the market that either wants to build this themselves or is looking to have a partner that they work with just on the deployment. Then once that deployment's completed, they're up and running, and then they're off building their workloads and managing this OpenStack deployment on their own. So to talk a little bit more about the program deliverables that are aimed at the folks that are building this themselves, there is a toolkit now available from the program via Dell Engineering. The toolkit is essentially a set of scripts and configuration guidelines and other pieces of code that will enable a customer to firstly set up the networking of their new OpenStack cluster prior to having any software available on it. There are some scripts that will run on the first node in the cluster that will prepare that first node in the cluster for a software deployment. The scripts will then pick up the software from Red Hat Network. That's part of the software services that the customer will have purchased. The scripts will download the software from Red Hat Network, install that software on the first node inside of their cluster, bootstrap that node so that it's up and running, and that node then takes over from the scripts that we've built and begins the process of configuring the hardware that it finds and then deploying the OpenStack software across all of the hardware that it can find configured together inside of the cluster. And very rapidly, using these automation tools, we can deploy a full OpenStack on the hardware that we've been given to configure. Right at the bottom of the slide there, you can see that the installation scripts, the automated scripts, they got OpenStack up and running on standard PowerEdge rack servers in about half the time that it took for an individual to do a manual installation. What was even more impressive was that by using FX2 and the density of the hardware that we can get in an FX2 deployment, we got OpenStack up and running on PowerEdge FX2 in just over an hour. Now, I don't know if that's a record, but that is really quick. Often customers that I've spoken to talk about the fact that it's taken them days, if not weeks, to get OpenStack up and running. I've talked to some customers that have been at the build end of the work they're doing who have actually given up on their deployments. OpenStack has a bit of a reputation for being complex to deploy, and so therefore it's got a bit of a reputation with some customers as being more of a science project than a real deployment. And so tools like this that could get OpenStack up and running and deployed on bare hardware in just over an hour really are a significant piece of differentiation for Dell EMC and the overall program. If you have customers that are interested in looking at the scripts just to understand what they do, we're happy to share them with the customers. We're in the process of open sourcing these tools, but I would imagine that that's not going to happen until potentially the end of calendar year 2017 as we work our way through all the different steps in the open sourcing process. So in the meantime, if you have customers that would like to see these scripts, drop a piece of email to me, Steve Wanless, or drop a piece of email to openstack@dell.com and we can make that happen. For further details, please feel free to look at the 9.11 for the OpenStack 10 release that has just gone out. Alrighty, so let's now talk about business challenges that customers are facing. As I've said in depth, just talking on the last slide, rapid automated development is probably one of the biggest steps forward for many customers. It's the deployment piece that customers find the most difficult to get up and to get right in order to get their cloud infrastructure up and running. Once the deployment piece has completed, we then use a tool from Red Hat called CloudForms, which really is the operational day-to-day management tool for customers. We've done a lot of work with CloudForms. We've written a number of deployment guides. So you can recommend this to your customers as the management tool for their OpenStack environment with some degree of confidence that it's actually going to work for them. And one of the things that we've done with trying to simplify the management interface is, at the request of customers, is to put a bit of effort into making sure that, for instance, features like chargeback accounting work correctly. So this is an environment where you have a private cloud being managed by OpenStack as the infrastructure, and you have multiple users on that shared cloud infrastructure. Chargeback accounting enables you to deploy an accounting system that will charge customers of your infrastructure or your customer's infrastructure based on their usage, so that you can accurately bill them for what they used, rather than trying to take a different approach and bill them for a potential share. So we've done a lot of work, not just to automate the deployment and operational side of OpenStack, but to try and build some real-world management interfaces into deployment as well, that the customers that you're going to be speaking to will find useful. So just to bang on again about who those customers are, they're Linux customers. You're not going to find many people in the Microsoft environment that'll be talking to you about OpenStack. A lot of the customers that we've had up until now have been telcos, and they are telcos that are using both native OpenStack to run billing environments for their customers, but they're also service providers that are looking at transitioning away from the proprietary equipment of service provision and telecommunications and move their telecommunications functions into the cloud, and OpenStack is the environment that they've chosen to do that. As you can see from the rest of the slide, cloud hosting. So these are hosting providers offering resource as a service to their customers. Rackspace is a good example of somebody who uses OpenStack as their cloud infrastructure that they then sell time on to their customers. Big data analytics. Big data is now a workload that is rapidly transitioning to OpenStack, along with high performance computing. We've done a lot of benchmarking with big data and Hadoop. And we've discovered that with some tuning of the OpenStack infrastructure, we can deliver nearly 97% of what would normally be considered bare metal performance in a cloud infrastructure world. Now, given all of the benefits of using cloud and the manageability of applications, 97% of bare metal performance is really quite significant, and we're seeing a lot of customers now starting to use OpenStack as the deployment basis for all of their big data applications. As I said earlier, people that are into building their own applications that they're then going to either sell or offer as a service are also using cloud infrastructure and OpenStack to develop those applications on. As I mentioned earlier, OpenShift is a good example of platform as a service that's run on top of OpenStack. Also, as part of the program, we tended to focus on performing benchmarks, and those of you that are familiar with spec, so spec in, spec FP, may also know that just recently spec released a cloud benchmark. So far, Dell EMC is the only cloud environment to have run and published spec cloud results, done that of course using the Red Hat OpenStack platform software. So we are the first and only people to have published numbers there. You can see the URLs on the slide. You can hit those URLs up, go to the spec pages and look at the results there. There's a lot of documentation on what the benchmark is measuring in terms of scalability, elasticity, and speed of provisioning. So it makes a good talking point with customers that have got an interest in cloud performance that are starting to evaluate OpenStack. And as I mentioned earlier, for those customers that are doing a lot of do-it-yourself, build it out yourself, there is a huge library of documents that has come out of the program, explaining to customers how to prep the hardware ready for a software deployment, how to get that software up and running, what the network configuration looks like, how to physically cable the network, and then all of the different virtual LANs that are operated by OpenStack once it's up and running. Customers can pick these deployment guides up. They are all on Dell Tech Center, which is a public-facing website that the customers can go to, pick these documents up and start to review the work that we've done. Let's also talk a little about payment solutions for the customer. You can see from the slide that we're trying to make best use of all the different programs that Dell EMC Financial Services have to offer, all the way from pay-as-you-grow, provision and pay, ready capacity, flex on demand. These are Dell Financial Services programs that are available that customers can take use of when building or deploying their OpenStack environment. So where are you going to pick all these resources up from? So firstly, internally for you guys, Sales Edge, the presentation has URLs embedded in it as to where to go and find customer presentations, sizing guides, deployment guides that are for use internally. But then the majority of the program's deliverables can all be found on Dell Tech Center. Once again, the slide that you see here has an embedded URL inside of it. We intentionally put all of the program deliverables out on Dell Tech Center so that they are publicly viewable. You can tell a customer that's asking you questions about the OpenStack program exactly where to find all of these deliverables and all of this documentation in a public environment, so they can go away, pick this up, and start looking at it in their own time and get back to you as and when they need to, or as and when they've got queries. So please feel free, direct your customers to the cloud pages, the Dell Red Hat OpenStack solutions on Dell Tech Center. It's public, it's easy to get to, and very, very available. Alrighty, well that's about it from me. This has been a short introduction to the overall OpenStack program. We will be creating more detailed introductions to OpenStack generically, and then another detailed introduction as to what's included in Release 10. You can find those at a later date. Thanks, guys.